Hello again, it's tubalcain, your YouTube shop teacher, and this is tips number 529 entitled Checking the Accuracy of Test Indicators. Now I talked a little bit about dial indicators, but test indicators are the smaller ones that are, I think, considered more accurate. So I have two of them here that I'm going to test along with Gage Blocks. And we know that the stare at last word indicator is going to test out just fine. I mean, that's almost a given. And of course, if it doesn't, I got about 6 of them, so I could double check them. I'm not going to take the time to do that. But someone gave me this little indicator. It's strictly mechanical. Of course, this is mechanical. You get right down to it. But it's not. This is more like a jewel movement or a watch movement. Where this one is strictly with levers. It's called Ideal double-sided or reversible indicator. Some of you may have seen these. It came with the stand. Now you can look up images, Ideal indicator, if you want to see some more pictures of this. And it was a very popular one, I think, years ago. I don't know what the patent date on it is, but it only goes up to 10,000. But I'm going to see how accurate this is with Gage Blocks, as well as the little last word. Talk a little bit more about Gage Blocks and calibration and a few things like that. So I think this will be an enjoyable video. I know I'm going to have fun making it. So before I get started on the video, just a real quick comment here. You notice that I'm usually wearing my optivisor when I introduce my videos, and I've gotten to where I like it so much, especially with my eyes. I'm 75 years old. I often wear it all day long. So I was strolling through the mall. I love going to the mall. And with my optivisor, and of all things, I ran into Tom Lipton, and we chatted just a little bit, and I noticed he was wearing his as well. So I hope you got a chuckle out of that, and permission for the picture was given to me by this old Tony. These two little indicators read in thousandths of an inch, not 10,000ths. Some test indicators, and here's another last word indicator, does measure to the 10th of a thousand. I don't intend to use that. That would be an unfair comparison against the Ideal. You know, I've always loved the name that Starrett uses, last word. I just think that's so neat. But the only one that actually beat that for a name, I think, is Fowler, with their little indicator they call the Verdict. I thought that's such an awesome name. If I can get this open, I'll show it to you. There it is, the Verdict by Fowler. And that's to the half of a thousandth, isn't it? See the little dots between the graduations? Someone at my meet and greet gave this to me. I'm terribly sorry that I forgot your name. Put it in the comments if you would, if you're watching this. But you can see this is Ideal Tool Company of Rochester, New York. And it is reversible, and there's a man's name engraved on that. I suspect he is passed away by now. And I believe that this little clamp holder was an attachment that was sold separately. I do not like it. I'm going to show you why in a minute. It was just terribly flexible when I tried to set it up. I just couldn't get the rigidity that I needed at all, and I think it was at this joint right here. So I think I'll show that how this does not work and that we need rigidity. But before I get any farther, let me talk just a minute about Gage Blocks. This set of Gage Blocks was given to me by Jason McDonald here a couple of years ago, actually 4 years already, so, and thank you for that. And it's a Fowler set. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the calibration first, because these are far out of calibration, and this set would have to be degraded now. And I'm not criticizing Jason, but we got some rust, we got some fingerprints, and probably most of these are not ringable anymore. But let's take a look at the calibration here. This is Don Bailey. Many of you know who he is. He's made quite a few videos, and he is the president and owner of Suburban Tools, and here he talks about Joe Blocks, and I swear that there was a video he made where he and someone else went into a lab where they calibrated gauge blocks. I could not find that. See the name there, Suburban Tool. So look at some of these videos. He's quite a guy, incredibly intelligent. I would like to meet him someday. Gauge blocks and other precision instruments need to be calibrated, and if you've ever been in a factory, you'll see that there's calibration stickers on many things, including this Mitutoyo indicator that I have in my hand. It's long overdue too, but on this set of gauge blocks here, you can see that it's required every 2 years, and the last time that it was calibrated was in '06, and they were due in '08, so they're way out of calibration and could not be counted on. Now, in a basement shop like this, it's not going to make one bit of difference, but I'm talking about possibly at Caterpillar, they could not use these. I did read somewhere that if gauge blocks are no longer ringable, that they should not be used, but you can see here where there's some damage. For instance, right here, that's rust and corrosion, and as I pulled some of them out, I did find fingerprints on them, and they should never have been returned to the case without being wiped and cleaned, and there's special fluids for that. You see a lot of scratches, and these are going to be just fine for what I'm doing, but one of them that I pulled out, and it's the 100,000th there, I believe, you can see the corrosion right there, and I'm just deducing that possibly somebody with sweaty fingers held that at one time and then put it away. But that is, again, which one is that? Yeah, 101,000th. You know, yeah, and several of them are that way. But I'm not going to let that prevent me from using these, because I still don't think that that will be detectable, but I may not ring all of them because they won't ring anymore, and I hope you know what I mean by that term. When I make a video, I do not generally make assignments, but today I am making a required reading assignment, and I want you to go to Wikipedia and look up Carl Edvard Johansson, and it's a very short biography of him that you can read in less than 1 minute, so that's required reading, and I don't want any excuses. And then I'm giving a extra credit assignment for my better students, and I want you also to go to Wikipedia and look up gauge block. That's quite a long article, but you go ahead and read that, and I think you'll enjoy it. Now let me show you some pictures. I know that I'm a long ways from getting started on this video, but I'm going to show you some pictures of Carl Johansson, a man that I have the greatest of respect for. Here's Mr. Johansson later in life, and remember he was friends with Henry Ford because Ford bought him out. There he is with a whole stack of gauge blocks, and I have some of these devices here. It almost looks like a lift bridge, but it is not. Here he is with a whole stack of them wrung out, and I think he's getting quite a kick out of it himself. He moved back to Sweden toward the end of his life. There he is when he received his honorary doctorate degree in Minnesota. Minnesota, we said. The Swedes and the Norwegians said, Minnesota. And I have a picture of him here someplace with his family. And there he is with his family. Thank you for bearing with me. Here I am with the original setup. And I didn't like it. There's the clamp. If you touch the indicator with a piece of eiderdown, you know, it would move on you, and I just can't have that. Not showing up so much now, so I'm going to change the setup and use a better system of holding it, rather than that little indicator attachment that came with it. And this probably would have been okay on a lathe. Here's my methodology. I'm using the little ideal being held in a steric surface gauge, and since I didn't have two of these, I put the last word indicator in another height gauge here. It really doesn't matter. As long as everything is held securely, everything is clean. I've wiped the surface plate, I've wiped the bottom of the gauge blocks. So the big gauge block here is a 750,000th. That's just my basis, so that I'm not working directly on the granite surface plate. And then I'm going to stack, or should I say exchange. This is a 100 thousandths, and then I have a 101, 102, and I'm going to work my way up to 10 thousandths. Remember, this only has a 10 thousandth capacity, whereas we have 30 thousandths on the last word. So we'll start out with this one, the ideal. It is ideal, you know. Here's the setup, and I'm just going to zoom in for this. You're only going to see the indicator on the blocks. But this is a 101 that I have on there, and you can see that brings me to the 1. I hope that shows up on the screen. You guys that are watching this on your phone, does that show up? So maybe you understand here why I'm not using the 100, because it drops down and it's difficult to calibrate this one. So let me take the 101 off and put on a 102. That's the 102. And it's not quite on. I'm going to change the camera angle just a little bit. Lower it so there's no parallax even with this. I don't know if that's the correct terminology with this kind of indicator. And this is 104. It should go right to the number 4 line. And you can see it does not. Why is that? Now let me put on the 6. This is a 6. And it's only about at 5. I'm going to back up and put the 101 back on and see if it goes back to the 1, because why would it be that far off? See, that's the 101. All right, it is that far off. Now I'm going to jump clear up to a 108, so it should read 8 thousandths. It does not. It reads 7. It's a full thousandth off, and when I put a 10, this is a 10, let's see what happens. It's only at 8.5. So I am declaring this indicator to be inaccurate and unusable. I would like to take it apart near the end of the video. I don't know if I will. It's just getting too long. Let's switch to the last word. I have to approach this at a different angle with the camera because the dial will be face up. That's a 100,000th block. Okay, no parallax error. Alright, now it's zeroed out. I will zoom in. Perhaps you couldn't see that, and I'm going to use the 101 to start with. Oh, I'll make it the 102. A 102 gauge block, so it should read 2 thousandths. And it does. I'm trying to shade it a little bit here, so you know that's right on. Let me switch to another one. This is a 104, so it should read 4 thousandths. And it appears to be right on. Here's a 106, so it should read 6 thousandths. And it does. The 108, it should read 8 thousandths. Right on, that is the last word, isn't it? And 10 thousandths, 110 thousandths. And it's spot on. Now I'm going to step it up a notch and go a little bit farther because I've only gone 10 thousandths through its range so far. So let me find a larger gauge block. The last one I'll do here is a 115, so it should read on the 15. And yes, that's right there. Need to get the camera over a little bit. Alright, so I have deduced here, or proven, should I say, that The last word indicator is right on using gauge blocks, and the ideal is not right on and should be declared unusable. If a person wanted to do a similar experiment with an indicator that reads to the 10th of a thousand, such as this one, we have all kinds of gauge blocks here that read to the 10th and can be rung together into just any combination. And I forgot what the total number of combinations is that you can achieve with a full set of gauge blocks. Somebody put that in the comment. I read that, but I just don't remember without going back and looking it up, and I forgot to write it down. Did you find that interesting? Using this Kmart screwdriver here, I'm going to see if I can get it apart without losing those tiny screws. If I do lose any, you will never even see this clip. I can barely see them. And I can see this has been apart before because those little screw heads look a little buggered up. And this is a job for a jeweler, not a septuagenarian. I don't know if I showed you or not, but they call this reversible, and in fact there are two needles on this indicator, one on that side and one on that side. Well, using Mr. Exacto here, I think maybe I can get it apart now. There we go. If anyone is in the mood for finding the patent for this, look it up. I did a superficial search and could not find it. Oh, there goes the needle. Little bit of a spring there. Here's the needle. I hope that that other piece didn't end up on the floor. Let me look for it. I'm hesitant to take that needle out of there at this time. My battery went dead, and it's an hour later, so I lost some footage, and I lost my train of thought is what I lost, but here it is opened. And as I told you from just guessing, or maybe I had seen a picture of one of these, that it was just a system of levers, and that's really exactly what it is. And I put the screws back in so I could actuate it. Tighten up that little vise. There it is. Now I told you that it was double-sided. It can be read from either side. So you can see the needle over there. And can you see what's happening? That the needle is divided almost like a fork down here. Let me illustrate. Pretend that this tweezers is the needle, two needles. And they are straddling that little graduated portion of the indicator, and you're reading it on one side like this, and then flipping it over and seeing it on the other side like this. So that's all it amounts to. But I would never have known what it was like until I opened it up. And that's probably a good part of what the patent is. On the indicator holder, again, it says Ideal Tool Company in New York, as well as on this piece. And I think these only cost $2 or $3 at the time, but since that might have been 80 or 90 years ago, that might have represented a good part of a day's work. And the long-dead machinist's name was Watts. Maybe it was James Watts, who invented the steam engine, do you suppose? So there it is, only a 10,000th movement. What are the odds that I can get this back together and working again? 50-50 at the most? Well, that concludes this rather long video. I hope you liked it. leave a comment if you will. Now in the follow-up video, which will not be in consecutive order, I intend to take perhaps 10 calipers, however many I have, both dial and digital, and calibrate them, that is, to see how accurate they are with the gauge blocks. So be sure and find that video when available and watch it, because I had to go out to Harbor Freight today and buy a cheap caliper so that I could check that out. So that's a little story in itself, in that it didn't work when I bought it. So I hope you enjoy my videos. Tell your friends. Tell shut-ins so that they have something to watch besides the horrible network shows. But this is Tubalcain saying so long for now, and you'll see me in my next video. I hope you appreciate this short segment, but you know, I'm most interested in the history of technology and all that is involved in the timeline. But I spent about a half hour looking around here, and I finally came up with different examples, and these all came from the Great Westclox factory. But here is the 3 phases of Johansson gauge blocks. This is the original mark here with Carl Edvard Johansson in Sweden. So this would be an older one, unless he was also manufacturing them overseas at the same time here. But once he had collaborated with Ford, and actually Ford had bought him out, here's the famous Ford logo on a couple of blocks, specialty blocks here. And then after he sold out, or after Ford sold out, it became Brown & Sharp. So here you see an example with the Brown & Sharp logo. Now these are in terrible shape and not usable, and I almost threw them away, but I'm glad that I did not. And you may remember in the pictures I showed you a little earlier of Carl himself holding some of these holders, and I hope to show some of these. I have a lot more of them in another video, but let me know if you like it when I insert historical sections like this. But this goes to show you how terribly important it is that they be stored correctly. Now these right here were in a little wooden box, you know, a finger jointed box, wooden box. Now wood will absorb moisture. You must never store things in a wooden box, a gun or something like that, because that is the result of it, because wood absorbs moisture. This is the mess that I have left on my bench after I complete a video. So you can see I have a lot of cleanup to do that might take a full hour after I edit the video. This is just an afterthought.